Right? You're not dead yet, are you? Get moving. That farm isn't going to walk over here and spoon-feed you. The sight of the farm gives all of you a final, desperate burst of energy. You push through the last stretch of dusty, sun-baked earth, your heavy armor feeling like it's made of lead, your throat screaming for water. Finally, you stagger into the small yard of the farm. The stone house is humble but sturdy, the thatched roof looking wonderfully shady. A small, fenced-in pasture holds a few scraggly goats, and a weathered wooden well with a bucket stands proudly near the front door. You stop, planting your hands on your knees for a moment, breathing heavily. You straighten up, looking at Barnaby, Molara, and Pip, all of them looking equally exhausted but utterly relieved. You wipe the sweat from your brow with the back of your gauntlet, leaving a smudge of dirt and grime. A rough, tired laugh escapes you. "We made it," you say, your voice raspy but filled with genuine emotion. By tears' righteous hammer. "We actually made it." Barnaby claps you on the arm, a gesture of pure gratitude. "We wouldn't have without you, Tiberius, thank you." Molara is already moving toward the well. "Water." She gasps, lowering the bucket with practiced haste. A moment later, the bucket emerges, dripping and cool. She brings it over, and for a few glorious minutes, there is no sound but that of four people drinking deeply, splashing water on their faces, and finally beginning to feel human again. The door to the house creaks open. An older halfling woman, her face lined with years and sun, peers out cautiously. She holds a stout walking stick like a weapon. "Barnaby, Molara, Pip, is that you? By the gods, we thought you were lost for good. And who is this?" she asks, her eyes narrowing slightly as they land on you. A massive, blood-stained dwarf in plate armor standing in her yard. Barnaby steps forward quickly. "Aunt Hilda." "It's us, and this is Sir Tiberius Lightbringer. He saved us from corsairs and goblins in the past. He's a friend." Aunt Hilda's expression softens from suspicion to awe. "Corsairs, goblins, saints preserve us. Come in, all of you. You look half dead. I've got stew on the fire and fresh bread." She ushers you all inside her cozy, cluttered home. The smell of herbs, baking bread, and a simmering pot of stew hits you like a physical blow. It is quite possibly the most wonderful thing you've ever smelled. What would you like to do now that you've reached the safety and hospitality of the farm? A polite request. Don't go soft on me now, you great bearded wonder. You sound like you're at a bloody garden party, not a survivor's feast. You collapse into a sturdy, if slightly wobbly, wooden chair at the rough-hewn dinner table. The fork in your gauntleted hand looks comically small. The smells from the hearth are utterly intoxicating. You manage to temper your usual bluster, the exhaustion and genuine gratitude winning out. Ma'am, you say, your voice still a bit gravelly from the desert air. This stew smells incredible, truly. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, might I trouble you for some ale? Aunt Hilda bustles over, a ladle in one hand. She gives you a long, appraising look, then a slow smile spreads across her wrinkled face. Polite and a hero. You're a rare breed, Master Dwarf, she says, her tone warm but laced with that classic halfling sass. Course you can have some ale. Barnaby, stop gawking and get our guest a tankard from the cask. The good stuff, mind you. Not that swill you try to pass off on market day. Barnaby jumps to his feet with a grin and scurries to a small barrel in the corner, drawing off a generous amount of frothy, dark amber liquid into a heavy clay mug. He sets it before you with a respectful nod. The first sip is nothing short of divine. It's rich, slightly nutty, and washes the dust of the desert from your throat like a blessing. A moment later, Hilda slams a huge, steaming bowl of thick vegetable and mutton stew in front of you, along with a half-loaf of crusty bread. Right. A polite request. Don't go soft on me now, you great bearded wonder. You sound like you're at a bloody garden party, not a survivor's feast. You collapse into a sturdy, if slightly wobbly, wooden chair at the rough-hewn dinner table. The fork in your gauntleted hand looks comically small. The smells from the hearth are utterly intoxicating. You manage to temper your usual bluster, the exhaustion and genuine gratitude winning out. Ma'am, you say, your voice still a bit gravelly from the desert air. This stew smells incredible, truly. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, might I trouble you for some ale? Aunt Hilda bustles over, a ladle in one hand. She gives you a long, appraising look, then a slow smile spreads across her wrinkled face. Polite and a hero. You're a rare breed, Master Dwarf, she says, her tone warm but laced with that classic halfling sass. Course you can have some ale. Barnaby, stop gawking and get our guest a tankard from the cask. The good stuff, mind you. Not that swill you try to pass off on market day. Barnaby jumps to his feet with a grin and scurries to a small barrel in the corner, drawing off a generous amount of frothy, dark amber liquid into a heavy clay mug. He sets it before you with a respectful nod. The first sip is nothing short of divine. It's rich, slightly nutty, and washes the dust of the desert from your throat like a blessing. A moment later, Hilda slams a huge, steaming bowl of thick vegetable and mutton stew in front of you, along with a half-loaf of crusty bread. Right. Finally, some proper bloody enthusiasm. None of this dainty fork nonsense. Get in there, you animal. You toss the useless little fork onto the table with a clatter. It skitters off and lands on the floor. Without a second's hesitation, you grab the heavy clay bowl in both hands, lift it to your face, and proceed to inhale the stew. It's a spectacle of pure, unadulterated hunger. Chunks of mutton, vegetables, and thick broth vanish in a series of loud, grateful slurps. In mere seconds, the bowl is empty, polished clean. You set it down with a definitive thud and let out a massive, satisfied sigh that seems to rumble from the very depths of your soul. A bit of broth drips from your magnificent beard. Aunt Hilda stares, her ladle frozen in midair. Her eyes are wide with a mixture of horror and deep, profound respect. "Well," she says slowly, a slow grin spreading across her face. "I'll never have to worry if you liked it or not." Barnaby chuckles into his own bowl, and even Pip giggles. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, wash the last of it down with a huge gulp of ale, and then slam the tankard on the table. "Right, you boom," your voice restored to its full, commanding volume now that you're no longer half dead. "The tale. Gather round, you lot. It's a story of courage and crushed goblin skulls." You launch into the story with gusto, your hands painting pictures in the air. You describe the initial ambush, the treacherous halfling boy. You give Pip a mock scowl that makes him shrink behind his mother with a grin and the revelation of the corsairs. You act out your climb up the crevice wall, and your mighty shove of the Finally, some proper bloody enthusiasm. None of this dainty fork nonsense. Get in there, you animal. You toss the useless little fork onto the table with a clatter. It skitters off and lands on the floor. Without a second's hesitation, you grab the heavy clay bowl in both hands, lift it to your face, and proceed to inhale the stew. It's a spectacle of pure, unadulterated hunger. Chunks of mutton, vegetables, and thick broth vanish in a series of loud, grateful slurps. In mere seconds, the bowl is empty, polished clean. You set it down with a definitive thud and let out a massive, satisfied sigh that seems to rumble from the very depths of your soul. A bit of broth drips from your magnificent beard. Aunt Hilda stares, her ladle frozen in midair. Her eyes are wide with a mixture of horror and deep, profound respect. "Well," she says slowly, a slow grin spreading across her face. "I'll never have to worry if you liked it or not." Barnaby chuckles into his own bowl, and even Pip giggles. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, wash the last of it down with a huge gulp of ale, and then slam the tankard on the table. "Right, you boom," your voice restored to its full, commanding volume now that you're no longer half dead. "The tale. Gather round, you lot. It's a story of courage and crushed goblin skulls." You launch into the story with gusto, your hands painting pictures in the air. You describe the initial ambush, the treacherous halfling boy. You give Pip a mock scowl that makes him shrink behind his mother with a grin and the revelation of the corsairs. You act out your climb up the crevice wall, and your mighty shove of the Right? You jab a finger at Barnaby, your voice firm and direct. Now that we've had some proper sustenance, Barnaby, let's talk about this lost treasure you spoke of. You do have it, correct? You promised to show me the stash if I rescued your family. Time to deliver, lad. Barnaby flinches slightly at your directness, glancing nervously between you and Aunt Hilda. He rubs the back of his neck, his earlier gratitude now mixed with a touch of apprehension. Aunt Hilda, meanwhile, slams her ladle onto the table with a sharp clank, her eyes narrowing like a hawk's. Treasure. What treasure are you talking about, Barnaby? And what does this have to do with those emburdened corsairs chasing you halfway across the desert? Her voice is suddenly sharp, betraying a deep-seated concern, perhaps even anger. Barnaby shrinks a little under his aunt's fierce gaze. Aunt Hilda, it's a long story, I can explain. He then turns back to you, clearly uncomfortable. Yes, Sir Tiberius, the treasure, it's here. Buried right here on the farm, not far from the house. I took a fair portion of it from the corsairs before I fled their service. It's why they've been hunting us. He sighs, looking utterly weary. I was trying to start a new life, a quiet life with Molara and Pip. I thought I could outrun them. Clearly, I was wrong. He gestures vaguely towards the back of the house. It's mostly coin, some gemstones, and a few odd trinkets. But it's all here. Molara puts a comforting hand on Barnaby's arm, her own face etched with worry. Pip looks between his father and Greytan, clearly sensing the tension. What would you like to do or say next, Tiberius? Half bloody generous, aren't we? You're a hero, not a bloody Father Christmas. You let those corsairs off too easily, now you're giving away the loot. But the choice is yours, I suppose. Let's see how this plays out. Well, Barnaby, you say, folding your arms and leaning back in the chair with a thoughtful expression. I did agree to help you under the assumption I would take the treasure as my reward. But I would feel terrible if I left you all with nothing after all this. I'm a paladin of Tyr, not a bloody monster. You pause, letting the weight of your words sink in. So here's what we'll do. I'll take half the treasure as payment for my services, and you can keep the other half to help rebuild your lives, understood? Barnaby looks up, his eyes widening with a mixture of relief and gratitude. Half? Are you sure, Sir Tiberius? That's incredibly generous. Aunt Hilda, however, remains skeptical. Her arms are still crossed and her gaze is fixed on you, sharp and unwavering. And what do you intend to do with your half, Sir Tiberius? Go on a grand spending spree in Lescure, or are you planning to use it for some noble, knightly quest? You can sense she's testing you, trying to gauge your true intentions. But after a hard-won meal and some ale, your patience might be wearing thin. How would you like to respond to Aunt Hilda's question? Right, you boom, your voice ringing with righteous purpose. Aunt Hilda, I will use this money to build a party of heroes and wipe out the rest of those corsairs. Then, I plan to head for the lost dungeons of the Iron Ridge Mountains. I am a dwarf after all. The mountains call to me, and there are wrongs to be righted and treasures to be found there, too. Perhaps I can get my family's stonemasonry business back up and running in Thurum. Aunt Hilda stares at you for a long moment, her expression unreadable. But then, slowly, a smile creeps across her face and her shoulders relax. Well, she says, her voice softer now, I can't say I approve of dungeon delving. Too dangerous. But you sound like you have good intentions, Sir Tiberius. And if you're going to go after those corsairs, I won't stand in your way. Those bastards had it coming, especially after disturbing my peaceful farm. She shakes her head and sighs, then her gaze returns to Barnaby. But you better not get any more bright ideas to leave the farm and go treasure hunting again. Barnaby shudders a little at her tone. I won't, Aunt Hilda, I promise. Aunt Hilda turns to you once more and smiles. Well, I guess it is settled then. Let's go take a look at this treasure, shall we? Aunt Hilda stands up and gestures for you and Barnaby to follow her to the back door. What would you like to do next? Good, good. Don't trust anyone, not even a sniveling halfling who owes you his life. You're not as daft as I thought. You halt, your hand instinctively moving towards the pommel of your morning star as you turn your gaze on Barnaby. Hold on, you say, your voice low and dangerous. Before we go any further, Barnaby, let's be clear. You're not going to try anything stupid like attacking me, are you? Barnaby's eyes widen, and he shrinks back, holding up his hands in a gesture of surrender. No, Sir Tiberius, of course not. I would never. I owe you my life. Why would I attack you? To determine whether you trust Barnaby's response, you need to make that perception check. Roll a 1d20 and add -1 to the roll and tell me what you get. Also describe Barnaby's body language, vocal tone, and facial expression in the moment. What is he doing and saying? How does he appear? Is he sweating? Stammering, avoiding eye contact? Be specific. Then tell me what you rolled. Right, a 13, not bad. You study Barnaby intently. He is clearly nervous, fumbling with his words and avoiding your gaze momentarily. But when he does meet your eyes, you see a deep, genuine respect. He's sweating slightly, but it's a warm day, and he's likely still shaken from the events in the desert. Overall, you can tell he is in a panic state. You're convinced of the following. Barnaby is genuinely terrified of you, perhaps more out of awe than fear, and is desperate to appease you. With that in mind, you lower your hand from your weapon, but your eyes still narrow slightly as you speak. All right, Barnaby. I believe you, I'm trusting you, but that trust can be broken real quick. Lead the way. Barnaby breathes a sigh of relief and nods quickly, then turns and follows Aunt Hilda out the back door. The back of the house opens onto a small, overgrown yard. A few chickens peck at the dirt, and a line of laundry hangs limply between two rickety poles. Beyond the yard, a field stretches towards the nearby foothills. Aunt Hilda leads you to the base of an old apple tree, its branches gnarled and laden with fruit. She points to a spot near the trunk, where the earth looks slightly disturbed. It's buried under there, she says, her voice matter of fact. Barnaby can show you exactly where. Barnaby steps forward nervously and kneels, brushing aside some loose dirt to reveal the corner of a wooden chest. Right here, he says, his voice trembling slightly. What would you like to do now? Dig up the chest yourself. Order Barnaby to dig it up. Ask Aunt Hilda more about her past. Search the farm for more valuables or... Right, no time for niceties. Get to the loot. All right, Barnaby, you say, your voice leaving no room for argument. Dig it up. Let's get this over with and split up the treasures. Barnaby nods quickly and sets to work, using his hands to clear away the loose soil around the chest. It's a small, sturdy wooden box, bound with iron and sealed with a rusty lock. The wood is weathered and stained with damp earth, but it seems solid enough. With a grunt, Barnaby heaves the chest out of the hole and sets it on the ground. Aunt Hilda steps forward, examining the chest with a critical eye. Well, there it is. The source of all our troubles. Open it up, Barnaby. Let's see what we're dealing with. Barnaby hesitates for a moment, then reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, tarnished key. He inserts it into the lock, turns it, and with a click the chest springs open. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lies a glittering hoard of treasure. Gold and silver coins, gemstones, jewelry, and various odd trinkets fill the chest to the brim, gleaming in the afternoon light. Aunt Hilda gasps, her eyes wide with surprise. Saints preserve us. There's more than I thought. You, of course, remain stoic, your expression betraying little emotion, but even you can't deny the allure of the treasure. It's a small fortune, enough to fund your adventures for quite some time. How do you want to divide the treasure? Do you want to count it all out meticulously, take half at random, or something else? Right, right, get straight to the point. Magic first, then the shiny stuff. No sentimentality here. All right, you say, stepping forward and kneeling beside the chest. Before we split the coins and gems, I want to look through this hoard for any magic rings, amulets, or trinkets. We dwarves can tell the difference, not like you half-sized folks. Aunt Hilda raises an eyebrow but doesn't object. Barnaby looks relieved, happy to defer to your judgment. You reach into the chest and begin to sift through the treasure, your thick fingers moving with surprising delicacy. You examine each item carefully, turning it over in your hands, testing its weight, and looking for any signs of magical properties. After a few minutes of careful searching, you set aside a few items. A silver ring with a faded skull emblem, the one you took from the Corsair leader, which feels cool to the touch, and seems to emanate a faint aura of necromantic energy. An amulet made of polished obsidian, carved with a complex series of runes. It thrums with a faint vibration in your hand. A small, intricately carved wooden figurine of a badger that gives off a distinct smell of honey. These three items have a magical aura, but the ring is too evil for me, so you can have that. You proceed to then ignore the skull ring. You then begin to divide the remaining coins and gems into two equal piles, taking care to ensure that each share is as fair as possible. Once you're satisfied with the division, you stand back, gesturing to the two piles. "All right, Barnaby, half is yours, do with it what you will. I'll take mine and be on my way." You then take the pile that you deem your half and put it into your explorer's pack. After that, you pick up the amulet and the wooden figurine of the badger. What would you like to do next? "Before I leave, Barnaby," you say, your voice firm and authoritative, "I need you to tell me everything you know about the Corsairs, their hideout, their numbers, their leaders. I plan to hunt them down, and I need as much information as possible. And after that, point me in the direction of the closest inn. I need to gather a party." Barnaby nods quickly, his face pale with fear and a touch of awe. "Yes, Sir Tiberius, of course. Anything you want to know, just please don't hurt me." He takes a deep breath and begins to speak, his words tumbling out in a rush. "The Corsairs. They're based in Imburden, a port city on the Giveni Delta. It's a haven for pirates and smugglers, a lawless place ruled by the strongest and the most ruthless. Their hideout is in an old warehouse on the docks, near the Ember Sea. You can't miss it. It's the only one with a big skull painted above the entrance, although most of the city's warehouses have been destroyed." He pauses, licking his lips nervously. "Their leader is a brute named Captain Redfang. He's a vicious man, and he commands about 20 corsairs, maybe more. They're well armed, with scimitars, crossbows, and a few cannons mounted on their ships. They raid ships, rob merchants, and generally terrorize the coast. As for the closest inn, there's one in the village of Imberridge, about a day's ride northeast of here. It's called the Golden Tankard, a popular place for travelers and mercenaries. You should be able to find someone there willing to join your cause." Barnaby falls silent, looking at you expectantly, waiting for your reaction. What would you like to do now? Thank Barnaby and leave. Ask more questions about the Corsairs. Ask about the amulet or figurine or something else. Right, you declare, sizing Barnaby up and down, your eyes lingering on his nervous fidgeting. I will need a rogue for my party, and since you have experience with these people I am hunting, it's in the best interest of both of us. Once I leave, there's nothing to keep those thugs from coming back, and perhaps next time the consequences might be dire. Would you like to be a rogue in my party for a little payment? Barnaby gapes at you, his eyes wide with disbelief. Me, a rogue? But I'm just a farmer. I haven't been a rogue since those days with the Corsairs before I had my family. I couldn't possibly. Molara steps forward, placing a comforting hand on her husband's arm. Barnaby, think about it. He's right. Those Corsairs will be back. It's better to face them head-on with a powerful ally like Sir Tiberius than to wait for them to come to us again. Aunt Hilda nods in agreement. She's right, Barnaby. This is an opportunity, a chance to protect your family and get revenge on those who wronged you. You can see the wheels turning in Barnaby's head as he weighs his options. On the one hand, the thought of returning to his old life as a rogue fills him with trepidation. On the other hand, he knows that staying on the farm leaves his family vulnerable. After a long moment of consideration, he looks up at you, his eyes filled with a newfound resolve. All right, Sir Tiberius, I'll do it. I'll join your party. But I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it to protect my family. A smile spreads across your face, a rare and genuine expression of approval. Good, you say, clapping Barnaby on the shoulder, nearly knocking him off his feet. I knew you had it in you. Now let's get going. We have Corsairs to hunt. You now have a rogue in your party in Barnaby. However, since he is not a trained rogue, you will need to level him up in the character menu. To do this, go to the Notes section and the Character Info section and level him up there. You should give him the following stats and items: name, Barnaby race, halfling class, rogue gender, male alignment, neutral good level, 5 strength, 10-0 dexterity, 14-2 constitution, 12-1 intelligence, 13-1 wisdom, 11-0 charisma, 14-2 HP, 30 AC, 14 proficiencies, stealth, sleight of hand, persuasion skills. Acrobatics +4, investigation +3, perception +2 equipment. Shortbow with 20 arrows leather. Thieves' tools dagger 2. Pouch with 15 gold pieces. Once you have finished editing Barnaby's character sheet to include the above info, what would you like to do next? Should you prepare to leave? Or perhaps you want to take a long rest with Barnaby, Molara, Pip, and Hilda to ensure you are rested before combat. Okay, I added some XP to you and Barnaby for completing the first quest. What would you like to do next? I am unable to change your stats for you. To do this, go to the Notes section and the Character Info section and change your stats there. Once you have finished editing the character sheets to include those changes, what would you like to do next? Should you prepare to leave? Or perhaps you want to take a long rest with Barnaby, Molara, Pip, and Hilda to ensure you are rested before combat. As the DM, I don't track the exact XP costs for individual stat increases. In D&D, character advancement usually involves gaining enough XP to reach a new level, which then allows you to improve various aspects of your character, including stats. To determine the XP cost for your desired stat increase, charisma, or to see your total XP, you can check the player's handbook or other D&D resource books, or you can simply decide that you have enough experience to level it up to what you want it to be. You currently have enough XP to increase one of your stats by 2. This is not related to the core rules but a custom rule I have decided for this campaign. If you do not want to increase your charisma stat, you can increase any other stat by 2. Once you decide, let me know if you want me to confirm any changes that you make to your character sheet. After that, we can continue with the adventure. What do you want to do? All right, lad. Let's have a look at that character sheet of yours and see if you've made a pig's ear of it. Now, tell me what changes you've made, and I'll tell you if it's worth a damn. Did you remember to add the modifier? All right, listen up because I'm only going to explain this once. In D&D, your ability score modifier is derived from your ability score, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. The modifier is what you add to your dice rolls when making skill checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. Here's how to calculate it. 1. Subtract 10 from your ability score. 2. Divide the result by 2, round down if necessary. Or, use this table to make it easier. Ability score. All right, Tiberius, let's see if you've cooked up a masterpiece or a bloody disaster with your character sheet. Tell me exactly what changes you've made, and I'll give you my expert opinion. Don't leave out any details, and be sure you've got those modifiers right. I haven't got all day. Right, you announced to the assembled halflings, your voice ringing with authority. We'll take a long rest here at the farm before we move on to Emberage. We'll leave first thing in the morning. We need to be in top condition for what's to come. Aunt Hilda nods in approval. A wise decision, Sir Tiberius. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. With that settled, you and Barnaby settle in for a well-deserved long rest. The halflings provide you with a comfortable bed in the guest room, and you drift off to sleep, dreaming of epic battles and glorious victories. The night passes without incident, and you awaken the next morning feeling refreshed and invigorated. The halflings have prepared a hearty breakfast of eggs, bacon, and toast, which you devour with gusto. After breakfast, you gather your equipment and prepare to depart. You thank Aunt Hilda for her hospitality and bid farewell to Molara and Pip, promising to return soon. With Barnaby by your side, you set off towards Emberage, the village where you hope to gather a party to take on the Emberden corsairs. The road is long and winding, but your spirits are high, fueled by a sense of purpose and a thirst for adventure. As you and Barnaby leave the farm, you can't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. You know that the road ahead will be fraught with danger, but you're confident that you're up to the challenge. What would you like to do as you travel to Emberage? Do you want to talk with Barnaby, scout ahead, or something else? It is about a day's ride to Emberage. Right, you declare, your voice booming with authority. We'll take the Merchant's Mile down through the town of Mervon, then through Cliff's Road. Keep your eyes peeled for corsairs. Who knows who could be watching us on our adventure to Emberden? Barnaby nods nervously, his hand instinctively reaching for the hilt of his short sword. Aye, Sir Tiberius, I'll keep a sharp lookout. Those corsairs are crafty bastards. And so, you and Barnaby set off towards Emberage, taking the Merchant's Mile, a well-traveled trade route that winds its way through the Givany Delta. As you travel, you keep a close watch on your surroundings, scanning the horizon for any signs of danger. The Merchant's Mile is a bustling thoroughfare, filled with merchants, traders, and travelers from all walks of life. You pass caravans laden with goods, peddlers hawking their wares, and mercenaries seeking employment. The air is thick with the smells of spices, sweat, and livestock. After a few hours of travel, you arrive at the town of Mervon, a small but prosperous settlement nestled on the banks of the Ember Sea. The town is a hub of trade and commerce, with ships from all over the world docking at its harbor. You and Barnaby pass through Mervon quickly, not wanting to linger in the town any longer than necessary. You know that the corsairs have spies everywhere, and you don't want to risk being recognized. Leaving Mervon behind, you continue along Cliff's Road, a narrow, winding path that clings to the edge of the cliffs overlooking the Ember Sea. The road is treacherous, with steep drops on one side and rocky cliffs on the other. As you travel along Cliff's Road, you can feel the eyes of unseen observers watching you. You know that the Corsairs are out there somewhere, waiting for the opportunity to strike. Roll a wisdom perception check, Tiberius. Add your wisdom modifier of -1 to the roll. HMPH. You grunt as you squint around yourself, your eyes darting from rock to sea and back again, attempting to catch any hint of ambush. Roll of 9. You spot nothing of immediate concern, though the salt-laden air does carry a faint tang of something else on the wind. Not smoke, but something metallic like a forge or a smithy, perhaps further inland than you are. The sea gulls screech, the waves crash, and the sun beats down on you as you travel along Cliff's Road. Barnaby shivers beside you, even though it's a warm day. This place gives me the creeps, Sir Tiberius. I can almost feel those Corsair eyes on us. Despite Barnaby's comment, there is nothing to confirm that anyone is watching you other than the normal merchants, travelers, and locals. What would you like to do next? Barnaby, you say, your voice sharp and commanding. I want you to scout ahead, climb up the cliff edge and find a vantage point. Keep your eyes peeled for any sign of Corsairs. And roll a perception check to see if you can spot anything suspicious. Barnaby nods obediently, his face etched with a mixture of fear and determination. He carefully climbs up the cliff edge, his small frame agile and nimble. Reaching the top, he surveys the surrounding area, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. I'll roll for Barnaby, Barnaby's perception roll. 14-12 plus his wisdom modifier of +2, Barnaby's perception check. 14 Sir Tiberius. Barnaby shouts down from his vantage point. I see something. About a mile ahead there's a small cove hidden from the road. There's a ship anchored there, flying a black flag with a skull and crossbones. It's definitely a Corsair ship. He pauses, catching his breath. There are also a few figures moving around on the beach, but I can't make out who they are. They could be Corsairs or they could be prisoners. Barnaby continues, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and excitement. I also spotted another path from the main road to the beach. It seems they're trying to stay hidden, but I saw their tracks clear as day. Barnaby finishes giving his report, and now all eyes are on you for your next instruction. What would you like to do next? Right, you say, your voice booming with authority. We're going to head into town to the inn and look for a cleric and a wizard to help us take out those Corsairs. And we're going to get some dynamite and potions while we're at it. We need to be prepared for anything. Barnaby nods in agreement, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Aye, Sir Tiberius, let's get this done. Leaving the cliffs behind, you and Barnaby continue along the road towards Imberage. The town is not far away, and it won't be long before you reach your destination. As you approach Imberage, you begin to see signs of civilization: houses, shops, and people going about their daily lives. The town is bustling with activity, and you can feel the energy in the air. Entering the town, you head straight for the Golden Tankard, the inn that Barnaby told you about. The inn is a large, rambling building with a thatched roof and a sign hanging above the door depicting a golden tankard overflowing with ale. You push open the door and step inside. The inn is crowded and noisy, with people talking, laughing, and drinking. The air is thick with the smells of ale, tobacco, and roasting meat. You look around the room, searching for a cleric and a wizard, as well as a merchant selling dynamite and potions. You spot a few likely candidates, but you're not sure who to approach. There are many people in the bar, but you specifically recognize the following three people. 1. In the corner, there is a cloaked figure with a staff. He is poring over a book of arcane symbols. 2. Behind the bar, you see a portly man with a jovial face and a wooden leg cleaning mugs. 3. In the other corner, there is a robed woman with a stern expression and a holy symbol around her neck. What would you like to do? You You stride into the Golden Tankard, your plate armor gleaming under the dim lighting, and bellow, "I'm looking for two heroes, a wizard and a cleric. I will pay you well." Your voice cuts through the din of the tavern like a thunderclap. Conversations halt, heads turn, and all eyes fixate on you. The tavern's occupants regard you with a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and perhaps a glimmer of hope. The cloaked figure in the corner looks up from their book, their eyes narrowing behind the shadows of their hood. The robed woman behind the bar raises an eyebrow, her stern expression softening slightly. The portly man with the wooden leg pauses in his mug cleaning, his jovial face replaced with a calculating look. The rest of the tavern's occupants murmur amongst themselves, wondering who you are and what you're up to. The robed woman steps forward, her voice clear and commanding. "I am a cleric of Pellar. What is it you require?" The cloaked figure remains seated but speaks up as well. "And I am a student of the arcane." "What makes you think we would risk our lives for you? What would you like to do next? Speak with the cleric, speak with the wizard, or something else?" "4 tankards of ale, please," you shout to the bartender, gesturing for him to bring them over to your table. You turn to the cleric and the cloaked figure, your voice more conciliatory now. "I would like to request that you both join me for some ale and conversation. I am Tiberius Lightbringer, and I require your assistance." The bartender, a burly man with a thick mustache, nods and begins to fill 4 tankards with frothy ale. He sets them on a tray and carries them over to your table, along with a basket of bread and cheese. The cleric hesitates for a moment, then nods and walks over to your table, pulling up a chair. The cloaked figure remains seated for a moment longer, their eyes fixed on you, as if trying to gauge your sincerity. Finally, they rise from their seat and walk over to your table, their movements fluid and graceful. They pull back their hood, revealing a young man with piercing blue eyes and a sharp, intelligent face. "Very well," he says, his voice soft but confident. "I will hear what you have to say." You and Barnaby sit at the table, along with the cleric and the wizard. The bartender sets down the tankards of ale and the basket of food, and you all take a moment to help yourselves. The air is thick with anticipation as you prepare to explain your situation. The fate of the Giveni Delta may very well rest on your shoulders, and it is up to you to convince these two heroes to join your cause. What do you say? You lean forward, your voice earnest, and recount the harrowing tale of Barnaby, Molara, and Pip, painting a vivid picture of their desperate flight from the ruthless corsairs. You describe the brutal battle in the crevice, your valiant struggle against the goblins and pirates, and the gruesome fate of the corsair leader. We are here to clear out the corsairs, to end their reign of terror and bring justice to those who have suffered at their hands, you say, your eyes burning with righteous fire. This treasure is but a taste of what we can obtain from them, but the real treasure will be to rid this place of the evil that is the emburdened corsairs. You reach into your pack and pull out a handful of the coins and gems you obtained from the corsair stash, letting them sparkle in the dim light of the tavern. The cleric and the wizard stare at the treasure, their eyes widening slightly. I am willing to pay you handsomely for your services, you continue. But more importantly, I can offer you the chance to do what is right, to stand against evil and protect the innocent. You pause, letting your words sink in. So, what do you say? Will you join me in this fight? The cleric and the wizard exchange glances, as if silently communicating with each other. The cleric speaks first, her voice thoughtful. I am sworn to protect the innocent and fight against evil. What is your plan? The wizard strokes his chin, his eyes fixed on the treasure in your hand. I can help with the corsairs, but I also heard whispers of a hidden treasure they protect. Will we be able to collect this treasure as well? What do you tell them about the plan and the potential treasure? You nod decisively, your voice ringing with conviction. My plan is as follows. First, we will buy some dynamite and hunting traps. You pause, your eyes narrowing as you outline your strategy. Then, Barnaby will infiltrate the Corsair's lair and discreetly hide the dynamite in a barrel. Once he has completed this task, he will report back to us, and we will detonate the dynamite, destroying their base of operations and any ships they have at the docks. As the Corsairs flee the exploding warehouse, we will be waiting for them to spring the traps and finish them off. You look at the cleric and the wizard, your expression determined. This plan is risky, but I believe it is the most effective way to eliminate the Corsairs once and for all. What do you say? Are you with me? The cleric's eyes light up with righteous zeal. I will lend my divine power to this cause. The Corsairs will pay for their crimes against humanity. The wizard nods in agreement. I will use my arcane knowledge to help you succeed. These Corsairs are no match for our combined might. The woman pauses and asks you about another part of the plan. How much do you plan to pay us for our services? You nod, meeting their gazes with unwavering determination. For your payment, we will split the treasure we recover from the Corsairs 3 ways, and since you mentioned the hidden treasure, we will split it 4 ways. You pause, a glint of determination in your eyes. Additionally, I will provide us with any mana or health potions we need to complete this mission. Rest assured, you will be well compensated for your efforts. The cleric and wizard look at each other with a smile and nod back to you. All right then, let's get this show on the road then. We need to first acquire some equipment before engaging the Corsairs. The wizard says. What would you like to purchase in town? And what would you like to name the cleric and wizard that are joining your party? Right, you say, your voice booming with purpose. We need to stock up on supplies before we take on the Corsairs. You rise from your seat and head towards the town's marketplace, with Barnaby, the cleric, and the wizard following close behind. The marketplace is a bustling hub of activity, filled with merchants hawking their wares and customers haggling over prices. You quickly locate a potion vendor, a wizened old woman with a twinkle in her eye. You purchase 16 healing potions and 16 mana potions, enough for each of you to have 4 of each. The vendor accepts your payment, her wrinkled hands counting the coins with surprising dexterity. Next, you head to the town's general store, where you find a gruff-looking man selling hunting traps and other adventuring gear. You purchase several hunting traps, sturdy contraptions designed to ensnare unsuspecting prey. Finally, you seek out the town's explosives expert, a nervous young gnome with soot-stained fingers and a perpetually worried expression. You purchase the dynamite you need, being careful to handle the volatile substance with the utmost care. With your supplies secured, you return to the Golden Tankard, where you gather your companions and prepare to put your plan into action. Before you can proceed with your plan, however, the gnome stops you and tells you the following. I cannot give you the dynamite that you requested. It is too powerful and dangerous. I can however sell you 4 kegs of blasting powder that are a bit less powerful, but do not have as high of a risk of accidentally exploding. The blasting powder and hunting traps cost you 70 gold. How do you proceed? And what do you call the cleric and the wizard? I tell the gnome to give me the blasting powder and hunting traps, while a Verley and Astrich look at me with a look of concern of how much this cost, so I better have enough. You raise an eyebrow, a hint of annoyance in your voice, and ask, "How much gold do I have altogether after the last quest?" I check my notes, flipping through the pages to find the relevant information. You started with the equipment from the player sheet as well as about half of the loot of the Corsair treasure. After the last quest, you have approximately 100 gold pieces, in addition to any gems or other valuables you may have collected, I say, looking up from my notes. You nod, satisfied with the answer. "Very well," you say, turning to the gnome. "Give me the blasting powder and the hunting traps. I will pay you the 70 gold pieces you requested." You reach into your pouch and pull out a handful of gold coins, counting them carefully to ensure that you have the correct amount. You hand the gold to the gnome, who accepts it with a nervous smile. You turn to a Verley and Astrich, who are watching you with a look of concern on their faces. "I have enough," you say reassuringly. "Do not worry, I always have enough gold to complete my quests." You place the rest of your gold and gems back into your pouch and secure it to your belt. You are now ready to proceed with your plan to take down the Corsairs. "All right then," you say, turning to your companions. "Let's get this show on the road. We have a Corsair's lair to infiltrate." As you head out of town towards the Corsair base, a Verley raises her hand and stops the group in its tracks. You nod in agreement, your voice confident and reassuring. "Of course, a Verley. I will cast Shield of Faith on you, and Astrich, you may cast Mage Armor on yourself. It is important that we are all properly protected before we face the Corsairs." You focus your mind and channel the divine power of Tyr, your hands glowing with a radiant light. You touch a Verley on the shoulder, and a shimmering shield of faith appears around her, protecting her from harm. Her AC is now 18. Astrich mutters a few arcane words and gestures with his hands, and a shimmering field of energy envelops him, reinforcing his defenses. He is now AC 13. With everyone properly protected, you turn to the gnome, who is still standing nearby, watching you with a nervous expression. "I would also like to sell you the gems that I have collected," you say, reaching into your pouch and pulling out the sparkling stones. How much are they worth? The gnome examines the gems closely, his eyes widening with excitement. These are some very fine gems, sir. I would be willing to give you 50 gold pieces for them. You nod, satisfied with the price. Very well, you say, handing the gems to the gnome. Here you are. The gnome counts out 50 gold pieces and hands them to you. You add the gold to your pouch, which is now overflowing with coins and gems. You have no shortage of wealth. All right then, you say, turning to your companions. Let's get going. We have a corsair lair to infiltrate. You and your companions head out of town, towards the hidden cove where Barnaby spotted the corsair ship. The sun is beginning to set, casting long shadows across the landscape. As you approach the cove, you can hear the sounds of raucous laughter and drunken singing coming from the corsair ship. The corsairs are clearly celebrating, unaware of the danger that is about to befall them. How would you like to proceed with your plan? You grin, a predatory glint in your eyes. This is perfect, you say, your voice low and menacing. They're drunk and it's dark, they won't see us coming. You turn to Barnaby, your expression serious. Barnaby, you and I will sneak onto the ship and plant a barrel of explosives. We'll use the element of surprise to our advantage. You then turn to Averley and Astrich, outlining their part in the plan. Averley and Astrich, you two will plant the other barrels surrounding the hideout. Make sure they're positioned strategically to cause maximum damage. Once you've planted the barrels, meet us back here and we'll trigger the explosives, you conclude, your voice ringing with determination. You look at each of your companions, making sure they understand the plan. They all nod in agreement, their faces set with grim determination. With the plan in place, you and your companions set off towards the hidden cove, your footsteps silent on the sand. The sounds of raucous laughter and drunken singing grow louder as you approach the corsair ship, your hearts pounding in your chests. As you leave to begin the operation, Astrich, the wizard, halts you and says, "Before we start this operation, I have an idea. I will use my familiar to fly over the corsairs and turn invisible to see the position of all the enemies. I think this information could be valuable, so we can formulate a better plan. Do you allow him to use his familiar to scout the base?" You nod approvingly, a smile spreading across your face. "That's a great idea, Astrich. Any information we can gather will be invaluable in ensuring the success of our plan." Astrich nods in acknowledgement and closes his eyes, focusing his mind. After a moment, a small black raven appears out of thin air, perched on his shoulder. Astrich whispers a few arcane words to the raven, and its eyes glow with a faint, magical light. The raven takes flight, soaring silently into the night sky. The raven circles over the corsair ship and the nearby hideout, its keen eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. Astrich remains focused, his mind linked to the raven, receiving a stream of information about the layout of the corsair base and the position of the enemy forces. After a few minutes, the raven returns, landing once again on Astrich's shoulder. Astrich opens his eyes, his expression thoughtful. "I have gathered some useful information," he says, turning to you and Barnaby. "The corsair ship is heavily guarded, with several armed sentries patrolling the deck. The hideout is also guarded, but there are fewer guards, and they seem to be quite drunk. However, I have also discovered something else," Astrich continues, his voice growing serious. "There is a hidden tunnel leading from the hideout to the ship. It seems the corsairs use this tunnel to transport stolen goods and other contraband. The news of the hidden tunnel sparks a new idea in your mind. This could be a valuable asset in your plan to destroy the corsairs. How do you proceed knowing this information?" You nod decisively, your mind racing as you formulate a new plan based on the information provided by Astrich. "This is perfect," you say, your voice ringing with confidence. "Barnaby, you will go into the tunnel and lay traps at each point along the path. It's a tight space, so we can maximize their effectiveness." You turn to Astrich, your eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Astrich, you will wait at the end of the tunnel, hidden from sight. When the corsairs come running through, you will cast a fireball directly into the tunnel, detonating the barrel of explosives and sealing their fate." You pause, your gaze sweeping over your companions, ensuring they understand the revised plan. "With the corsairs trapped and the tunnel sealed, we can then focus our attention on the ship and any remaining enemies." You look at each of your companions, making sure they understand the plan. They all nod in agreement, their faces set with grim determination. "All right then, let's get this show on the road," you say, your voice ringing with purpose. "We have a corsair's lair to destroy." You gesture towards the tunnel, signaling Barnaby to proceed. With a nod, Barnaby disappears into the darkness, his footsteps silent on the sandy ground. You turn to Astrich, your eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Astrich, take your position at the end of the tunnel and prepare to unleash your fiery wrath on the corsairs." Astrich nods in acknowledgement and disappears into the shadows, heading towards the entrance of the hidden tunnel. You turn to Averly, your expression serious. "Averly, you will stay here and provide support. If any corsairs manage to escape the tunnel, you will be ready to intercept them and bring them to justice." Averly nods in agreement, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword. With the final preparations complete, you take a deep breath and steel yourself for the battle ahead. The fate of the Giveni Delta rests on your shoulders, and you are determined to succeed, no matter the cost. You await Astrich's signal that the tunnel is sealed off with the corsairs trapped inside. After a few minutes, you notice a flash of orange light coming from the end of the tunnel, followed by a series of very loud explosions. After the explosions, you see the other side of the tunnel collapsing and covering the exit in dirt. How do you proceed with the plan? You nod decisively, your voice ringing with determination. Quickly, averly, light a fire and start shooting fire arrows at the ship. We need to keep them occupied and prevent them from escaping, you command, your voice barely above a whisper. Averly nods in agreement and quickly gathers some dry wood and tinder, striking a flint and steel to ignite a small fire. As the flames begin to grow, she grabs several arrows and dips their tips into the fire, creating makeshift fire arrows. Astrich, you will unleash a barrage of fireballs at the ship, setting it ablaze and causing chaos among the corsairs, you instruct, turning to the wizard. Astrich nods in acknowledgement and closes his eyes, muttering a few arcane words. A ball of fire appears in his hands, growing larger and hotter with each passing moment. With a flick of his wrist, he hurls the fireball towards the corsair ship, where it explodes in a burst of flames and smoke. Barnaby and I will await the corsairs who flee from the burning ship as they come to land. We will use our skills to pick them off one by one, ensuring that none escape our grasp, you say, your voice low and menacing. You and Barnaby take up positions along the shoreline, your eyes scanning the burning ship for any signs of movement. You grip your morning star tightly, your knuckles turning white. The corsair ship is now engulfed in flames, the sounds of screams and explosions echoing across the cove. Corsairs begin to jump overboard, attempting to swim to shore, only to be met by a hail of fire arrows and a barrage of fireballs. As the corsairs begin to approach the shore, what actions will Tiberius and Barnaby take to eliminate the pirates? You nod decisively, your voice low and commanding. Barnaby, use your stealth to your advantage. Conceal yourself in the shadows and pick off any corsairs who try to slip past our defenses, you instruct, your eyes focused on the burning ship. Barnaby nods in acknowledgement and disappears into the darkness, his footsteps silent on the sandy ground. I will use branding smite on my morning star, then take out my crossbow and fire at the closest corsair, you declare, your voice ringing with determination. You grip your morning star tightly, focusing your mind and channeling the divine power of Tyr. A radiant light envelops the weapon, imbuing it with holy energy. You then draw your crossbow, loading a bolt with practiced ease. You aim at the closest corsair, who is struggling to swim towards the shore. You take a deep breath and squeeze the trigger, sending the bolt hurtling towards your target. Roll a 1d20 plus 2, dexterity -1 and proficiency +3, to see if you hit the corsair. The crossbow bolt flies wide, missing the corsair by a considerable distance. It splashes harmlessly into the water, doing nothing to hinder the pirate's progress. The corsair, seeing that he has been missed, lets out a triumphant laugh and continues to swim towards the shore. He is now closer than ever, and you can see the gleam of his teeth in the firelight. You curse under your breath, frustrated by your poor aim. You need to act quickly if you want to stop the corsair from reaching the shore. The corsair continues swimming towards you, but suddenly triggers one of the hunting traps that Barnaby set up. It appears the trap hit him right in the leg, and he goes under water screaming. Do you take another shot at the corsair, or do you focus on the other pirates making their way to shore? You quickly reload your crossbow, your movements efficient and practiced. You aim at another corsair who is struggling to swim towards the shore, his face contorted with fear and exhaustion. You take a deep breath and squeeze the trigger, sending the bolt hurtling towards your target. At the same time, Barnaby draws his shortbow, knocking an arrow and taking aim at the incoming pirates. He releases the arrow, sending it flying towards the corsairs with deadly accuracy. Tiberius, roll a 1d20 plus 2, dexterity minus 1 and proficiency plus 3 to see if you hit the corsair. Barnaby, roll a 1d20 plus 4, dexterity plus 2 and proficiency plus 2 to see if you hit the corsair. Your crossbow bolt finds its mark, striking the corsair square in the chest. The pirate cries out in pain and surprise, his struggles ceasing as he sinks beneath the waves. Barnaby's arrow, however, falls short of its intended target. It splashes harmlessly into the water, doing nothing to hinder the corsair's progress. As the remaining pirates continue to approach the shore, their eyes burning with hatred and determination, you can see that the battle is far from over. After having hit the corsair, roll a 1d8 for the damage your crossbow deals. Barnaby does not deal any damage because he missed. The crossbow bolt pierces the corsair's chest, dealing a moderate amount of damage. The pirate cries out in pain, his struggles ceasing as he sinks beneath the waves. The remaining corsairs continue to approach the shore, their eyes burning with hatred and determination. They are now closer than ever, and you can see the gleam of their weapons in the firelight. As the corsairs begin to reach the shore, Averly is ready with her fire arrows, firing them one by one into the incoming pirates. Averly ends up hitting one of the pirates with a fire arrow. You, Barnaby, and Averly stand ready to face the onslaught, your weapons drawn and your hearts filled with determination. The battle is far from over, but you are confident that you can emerge victorious, no matter the cost. What action do you take next in the fight against the corsairs? You roar out, your voice carrying across the cove. Astrich, fireball now. You grip your morning star tightly, the holy energy crackling around it like a living thing. You swing the weapon menacingly at the closest pirate, who hesitates for a moment, fear flickering in his eyes. Astrich responds immediately, muttering a few arcane words and gesturing with his hands. A ball of fire appears in his hands, growing larger and hotter with each passing moment. With a flick of his wrist, he hurls the fireball towards the closest corsair. The fireball explodes in a burst of flames and smoke, engulfing the corsair and sending him flying through the air. The pirate screams in agony as his body is consumed by the flames. Roll a 1d20 plus 3, strength, to determine if you hit the corsair with your morning star. The pirate who you are swinging at is already injured from a Verley's fire arrow. Your morning star connects with the corsair, the holy energy searing his flesh. The pirate screams in agony, stumbling backward as he clutches at the burning wound. You quickly grab your shield, holding it in a defensive position as you prepare to face the remaining corsairs. Your shield now gives you +2 AC, bringing your AC to 15. The remaining pirates, seeing their comrades fall, charge towards you with renewed fury, their eyes burning with hatred and determination. One of the corsairs attacks you with his scimitar. Roll a 1d20 to see if the corsair hits you. The corsair's attack is clumsy and telegraphed, his scimitar whistling harmlessly through the air as it bounces off your shield. You stand your ground, your eyes fixed on the remaining pirates, ready to strike back at any moment. With the corsair's attack failing to penetrate your defenses, you seize the opportunity to retaliate. What action do you take in the fight against the corsairs?